What's up, everybody? Joe Simons, like diamonds here at Hurricane Central. Here's what I mean. Hurricane Ian is about to roll through here in the next 24 hours. Because of that, we've kind of had to put this week on hold, but we didn't want to just have nothing on the podcast menu. We wanted instead to do some of our best stuff. So here's what I did. I spent a little time and went back and looked at the past 450 episodes, and I wanted to see what interviews had the most downloads, and two of them stuck out like a sore thumb in a really good way. This one and also the one we'll be playing next here this week. This first one is all about how to catch monster flounder. And the next one is all about gator trout. Really, really both amazing interviews. So make sure to stay tuned with these. We'll be back on our normal routine after this whole hurricane is over. It just had so much to do with our family of five and, the office property and our property and multiple boats. It's just been quite the crazy day managing all of this stuff. So guys, we love you. Hope obviously by the time you're listening to this, the hurricane is passed through, hopefully at least, and hopefully everyone was safe, and hope you enjoy this episode. Talk to you on the next one.
Welcome to the Fish Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh, prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here are your hosts, Joe and Luke Simons.
Hello, Salt Strong and Fish Strong Nation. It's Joe Simons, and we're back for another amazing episode of the Fish Strong Podcast. This one is going to be all about catching flounder, and we have, at least in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion after I asked a little survey of just the go-to guy, the expert on catching flounder and or fluke, which we'll talk about in a little bit, John Skinner. So this is going to be a really cool episode. But before we get into it, quick word from our sponsor, the Salt Strong Insider Fishing Club. It's the only fishing club that actually gives you new spots and new trends every single week so that you can start predicting where the inshore fish will be all year long, regardless if you're fishing in Texas or Florida or up past North Carolina. To learn more on that, go to saltstrong.com/podcast, where you can apply risk-free today. So that's it from our sponsor. Now, let's talk about flounder. John, thank you so much for the time here. I've been following you for a while. We've published a couple of your videos on our site that went crazy viral. It was the ones that had the underwater bucktail versus the gulp, and it's so cool seeing these flounder react. So I'm pumped to finally be talking to you, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. And those videos, those underwater ones that you refer to, that has really changed the way a lot of people have thought about these fish, because I can tell you, growing up, we often envisioned these things as these boring brown blobs laying there on the bottom, waiting for something to go by. And if you watch those videos and you look at how they strike baits, these are aggressive, nasty predators. And when you realize that and you adjust your fishing to that kind of thinking, it makes a big difference in your catch. So I'm glad you enjoyed those videos. And certainly it was very enlightening to get home, pop that card in the computer, and look at that stuff for the first time. It was like, wow, that's what's going on down there.
So, and how did you capture that? What was the setup?
Originally I had this was before the time of having a water wolf camera. I actually had a GoPro on like a custom sled, and that was kind of cool and gave a unique view in that I was able to run it alongside the bucktail and teaser rig that I use for catching fluke. So that gave you an interesting perspective. Once the water wolf camera came out, and for those of you that don't know what that is, it's an inline camera. So you've got that connected to your line, and it's made for taking underwater video. And so when that came out, I didn't use the GoPro anymore. I stuck with the water wolf, and that gives you a perspective of looking right at the bait and watching the fish come up behind it. So I was able to. It takes a little messing around to get that right, but I was able to get some really outrageous video doing that.
Yeah, I'd say, and it certainly changed my perception of these fish. And if you guys haven't seen it, please go to YouTube. Is it just John Skinner? Is that John Skinner Flounder video? Is that your channel?
Yeah, you know what? If you go on YouTube and you search for John Skinner Fishing, you're going to pick that right up, and you'll find that no problem. Yeah, Google, or if you just search for John Skinner underwater fluke. Now, yeah, so there's that word fluke, because I'm up on Long Island, New York, and we call them fluke, not flounder, because if you say flounder here, it means a different fish. So, yeah, if you Google, underwater fluke video, underwater flounder video, yeah, there's a very good chance you're going to come up on my stuff.
Yeah, it is awesome. So let's talk about that real quick before we get into some of the tactics. What is the difference between a flounder and a fluke, and what? Why is it different up there versus down here? Tell us, educate us, because I hear a lot of different people maybe saying it the wrong way.
Okay, so up here, flounder refers to winter flounder. Now, that's a fish that when I was a kid, these things like paved the bottom. I mean, it was the first thing you ever fished for growing up because they were so many. They were so easy to catch. It took little effort. And these have a small mouth. They're not aggressive predators. They really are bait-sucking brown blobs laying on the bottom. And something over the decades happened to that fishery, and there's like hardly any of them left. Like, I really personally don't know anybody who even targets flounder on Long Island anymore. I mean, some people do, I know, but for the most part, it's not worth the effort. There's so few of them. Up north, when you get up around Boston, Quincy, Massachusetts, they still have somewhat of a fishery there, but it's a shadow of what it once was. But still, to us, when you say flounder, yeah, it means the winter flounder. But fluke is what you would refer to in Florida as flounder. And what happens is as you move down the coast, once you get down south of Jersey, everybody calls them flounder. And we would call that a fluke, or you could call it a summer flounder. Now, if I say summer flounder, then everybody knows, pretty much what that means. That's a fluke.
Yep.
And actually, that's the same fish all the way down, and then it starts mixing with a population that's called southern flounder. So there's summer flounder, there's southern flounder, and there's also something called a Gulf flounder. All three of these are quite similar. I mean, certainly the size, there's a difference in size. But if you look at these, these have the bigger mouth, they have the teeth. They're predators. They chase things down, as opposed to a winter flounder, small mouth, no teeth. He's not chasing anything. So that's the difference.
Cool. So I guess when you were naming your book, you probably had a tough time, right?
Oh, yeah. It was really because I've got this whole audience up here that, flounder really means, a different thing to them.
Right. Yet
I know if I call it a fluke book, I'm going to have, a big chunk of the audience, down south of Jersey going, what's that? So yeah, so the title of the book definitely reflects that. Yeah.
And what did you finally go with? Was it Fishing for Summer Flounder? Is that right?
Yeah. So
okay.
Yep. So fishing for summer flounder, but then the subtitle is Fluke Jigging from Shore Boat and Kayak, and so that, this way here, I've got both names on there. But when you say summer flounder up here, that's okay. People know what you mean. We just tend to call them fluke. We don't call them summer flounder.
Cool. So how is it right now? How's the flounder bite?
Well, our season actually opens on Friday.
Uh-huh.
So we haven't gotten to go after them yet. So we'll be heading out Friday, and they're just trickling into our waters now. We've had a very cold spring here. We actually have about a 5-month downtime and off season here where the waters are too cold to fish, and we have to come down by you guys and catch if we want to get anything. And then what happens is around this time that these summer flounder or fluke will start coming into the area. But we had a very cold March and April, so things are running behind. But certainly we know there's some fish trickling in, and we'll get out there Friday and start for them. And then you know what, it happens pretty fast. You know, these fish are moving in from the continental shelf. They're moving up the coast a bit, and you know, we'll have fish.
Cool. Yeah. And I apologize for asking about that. It's 91 degrees here. So I keep thinking that the rest of the country is blazing hot and entering summer already. So, oh gosh, I'll be wishing I was up there in a couple months when all this humidity starts rolling in. So
the last 2 mornings that I've fished for stripers, it's been about 45 degrees out. So I'm wearing a hooded sweatshirt and a neoprene top, and I'm not warm. So that's cold, damp air blowing in from the ocean. So yeah, it's quite a difference.
All right. Well, let's talk about the habitat first. You know, where you're finding these, and I'm just going to keep saying the word flounder, where you're finding, you know, these flounder in different times, different seasons, different temperatures. Let's talk all about the habitat.
Okay. So I think one of the coolest thing about flounder is that you can catch them in such a wide range of environments. Like the cover of my book's got me standing on the beach with a nearly 8-pound flounder that I caught just a couple feet off the shore. This thing was in 2 or 3 feet of water. So that's the one extreme, but we have plenty of people out jigging in over 100 feet of water. So everything from sand beaches to inlets to bays, flats, certainly sound, ocean, you name it. And, you know, they're in all these different kinds of environments. And that's one of the exciting things is that it's a fishery that's accessible to a lot of people. I mean, you can catch them from shore. If you've got a kayak, even one that you don't fish out of, if you use one just to get to some different pieces of water that maybe you can't get to right from the shore, or, you know, small boats all the way up to, you know, we go out in 30-foot center consoles and make long runs. So it's quite a wide range. As for what I'm going to look for when I'm out fluke floundering is its depth changes. I do a lot of time looking at bottom contours. They love slopes, edges, little rips. I don't mean, you know, tremendous currents or anything like that, but certainly depth changes, edges, that kind of thing.
Cool. And what about currents?
A good example is we have what you might call passes down there. We call inlets. I know a little bit about like the west coast of Florida because I actually have a lot on Pine Island down by Fort Myers. So I've done some fishing down there, and you know, I know we got Redfish Pass and Captiva Pass. And, you know, I know you call them passes. We call them inlets. I know you call them inlets though on the East Coast.
That's
so
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
those things that connect smaller bodies of water to larger bodies of water, for us, that's where we'll see places with a lot of current. And then typically, we're not going to fish flounder with extreme currents, and you know, we're going to seek out a little bit slower water. And now, by slower, you know, one thing that I'm looking at a lot when I'm fishing is drift speed. We're out in the boat or the kayak, and 1 mile an hour is like the sweet spot. And it seems like if you're moving anywhere, it's between, let's say, like 0.5 miles an hour and 1.5. You know, that's a really nice range because you don't want to be stationary. You want to be covering some ground. You know, these fish are using current. You know, they're laying there on the bottom. They're pretty camouflaged. You know, a lot of people have always said, "Oh, they're buried and waiting to strike," but you know, the underwater video really doesn't show that. You know, these things are swimming around. They're certainly camouflaging themselves to some extent and waiting for current to bring them food. So current is very important. However, you know what? If it's running, you know, 2.5, 3 knots, well, yeah, we're not fishing that. If I'm going to fish an area like that in an inlet, I'm going to try to use like maybe little bends in the jetties in the inlets to get areas where there's a little bit less current. Or the big thing is, you know, you're timing your trip to coincide with the slower parts of the tide cycle. So, you know, maybe 90 minutes either end of either slack current period. You know, I need to do that when targeting flounder in the inlets.
Cool. And let's talk a little bit about lures and the jigs. what I know you use a lot of different stuff, and you're really good because you actually test it. What's your go-to? Like, what do you think is best overall? Is it still the bucktail?
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. A bucktail with gulp. And so, when everybody that's grown up where I am fishing for flounder, we all learned the same way. I mean, if you fished, if you learned 20, 30 years ago, what you learned was you drag baits, strip baits along the bottom. A typical thing here would be a strip of squid with a spearing or a killie, and that's like, a minnow kind of fish. Every single fluke flounder trip when I was younger began with getting bait, whether you're going to go buy some bait or you're going to drag some bait yourself. That was an important thing. And you basically stuck that rod in the rod holder, you held on to it, you net sticked it, and just drifted, dragged that stuff along the bottom. And, boy, it is so much more productive to jig. What I use and what we're using now is a bucktail, and that bucktail weight. Now, bucktail, I think most people know what that is, but it's a lead-headed jig with deer hair on it. That is tipped with Berkeley Gulp Alive in Berkeley. Nobody's paying me to say this. I'm just telling you what is very productive. 1 foot above that is what we would call a teaser or a dropper lure. And that could be as simple as I like the Gamakatsu bait holder hooks, again, tipped with gulp. But I use a lot of my favorites are definitely the tsunami glass minnows, both the silicone skirt and the original one, and the tsunami hollow teasers. And this stuff is all tipped with gulp. And if we're in smaller waters and we're targeting shallow stuff, 5-10 feet, and we're not expecting 8-9 pounders, then the 4-inch Berkeley Gulp Alive swimming mullets, they're very standard. Also the 3-inch gulp shrimp, that's deadly. If we start getting out into the deeper water, out in the ocean, we're out 70 to 100 feet of water, and we're targeting larger fish. Pretty much we're using the 6-inch gulps as much as we can, and we're just trying to provide those fish with a larger profile, bigger meal, because we're targeting bigger stuff.
And this is the 6-inch gulp, like as a trailer?
The grub.
The grub, okay, on the bucktail.
Yeah, right. And what we'll do is we'll tip that bucktail and the teaser both with the grub. And the 6-inch grub is one of the models. There's also a 6-inch Gulp Nemesis. That's another, actually it's a 6.5-inch, and that's a really good one too. But all those Gulp baits, they're very good. And I've got some neat underwater video, basically watching fluke react to a blob of gulp being dragged through the water. It's not that thing looked good at all. And you've got fish swimming right up to it and, evaluating it for 10, 15 seconds before eating it. And the only thing I could conclude from watching that is, you see that fish nosing up to it. It's got to be smelling whatever it is that's on there. And if it doesn't smell good, well, probably isn't going to eat it. And then if it doesn't taste good, well, when it grabs on, it's probably not going to hold on to it. But when I shoot those videos, I put a cover over the hook. I don't want to hook the fish with the camera rig. And, they just keep grabbing at that. So whatever's in there, it must taste good. I can tell you it has revolutionized the way people fish for fluke or fish for flounder here.
Yeah, I mean, your videos are pretty revealing that the gulp stuff works. I know we've been big fans of it here in Florida, and they changed a little bit, I think, of the consistency, and the lures haven't been holding up as well, but doggone it, I mean, it works. I mean, it's not cheap, and, especially here when we're going on inshore fishing, we got little pinfish and puffer fish. We'll just rip those things in half, and it's, you're basically going through $1 a pop, but doggone it, they work. There is something magical in there, and that gulp juice. So
yes, and we have ways of dealing with what you just described, because we've got the same problem where it's not pinfish for us, but it's black sea bass are one of them. And black sea bass are really kind of a nice fish to catch and eat and all of that, but it seems like we're getting more and more of these things every year, and a lot of little ones, and they will do exactly what you just described. That the pinfish do is they tear the baits. The gulp nemesis is especially prone to that. That's a great looking lure, but yeah, sea bass can just tear that thing up. The gulp grubs, the 6-inch grubs, are pretty durable. It's a big bait. But yeah, we've got that problem. And then what we'll do is there's something up here that I doubt you have them down there. They're called otter tails. It has nothing to do with an otter. It's a terrible name. It's this, it's almost like a strip of pork rind, like when Uncle Josh was making pork rind. It's similar, but it's not. It's some kind of coated fabric. Put it this way, it works very well. It's a great pork rind replacement. So what we'll do is, if the sea bass are killing us and ripping off the gulp tails, leave a gulp stub on and then put one of these strips on. So that gives us that nice undulating action. And we still have, the gulp stub. So we've got the scent of the gulp. We've got the action. And, that's how we'll deal with stuff like, your pinfish or our sea bass or porgies tearing apart the gulps.
Cool. In terms of your presentation, with that same setup, walk me through, and we'll reference the videos too, where you can actually see what it looks like underwater. But tell me about your presentation, your favorite way to put that in front of a fluke's face.
Yep, it's rapid vertical jigging, and it's using as light a weight bucktail as you possibly can without scoping out. Scoping out means if you're going too light, you have to keep letting out line to stay near the bottom. You get this big angle on the line. The objective to keep in mind is to keep as much motion as possible on the jig. So when you're bouncing that thing up and down, that rig needs to be bouncing. And, I've posted maybe an hour plus worth of underwater video on my channel. However, I've had to watch many hours of that because I'm home with like 4 hours of underwater video. You can't post an hour long YouTube video, right? So, I've watched hours and hours of where, I will be running like, and also you can't bounce the camera, right? So you've got a strip bait on the camera just to attract fluke and see some fluke, flounder. And next to it, you'll see the bouncing jig rig, and over and over, I've got a fresh strip of bait on the camera, and the flounder will bypass that and just go after that bouncing rig. I mean, if there's 3 fluke and there's a strip of fresh bait and there's a bouncing rig next to it, they're all going to go right after the bouncing rig. That motion is like a magnet to them. So this dictates everything. It's a matter of, hey, look, this is easy if you're in 12 feet of water, right? If you got 3/4 ounce jig, a 1 ounce jig, bounce on a medium action rod, and you're going to be putting motion on the jig. Where it starts getting more challenging is you start getting out 30, 50, 70, 90 feet of water, and add current to it. Like one of the places we fish is Montauk Point, New York. We've got current, we've got depth. We fish out to like 100 feet over there, and to stay down, depending on what the current is, we may have to use 4, 5, 6 ounce bucktails to stay down.
Wow.
So this is where we need to start, beefing up the tackle a little bit. Now, the important thing is I use 15-pound test braided line for everything. I don't care if we're out in 100 feet of water, I'm still going to be using 15-pound braid. And because the important thing is that you use a very thin diameter line that's not going to have a lot of drag in the water. This is going to enable you to use a lightweight bucktail and to put good action on that jig. So, but still, if we're out in deep water, we have current, and we've got to go up to 4 ounces. Well, guess what? The rod that worked beautifully with a 3/4 or 1 ounce jig is not going to allow you to put action on that heavy jig, because as you bounce it, all you're going to be doing is flexing the rod. Yeah. So when we go out and we fish Montauk, I'm going to have at least 2 rigs with me, maybe 3. And honestly, I like the Tsunami Classic rods. I think the action is right. They're pretty inexpensive. These are like $60 rods. The Classic casting is the model. So I'll go out there and I'll have what they call the H, or the heavy, that's rated 12 to 20 pound test line. I'll have an MH that's rated 10 to 20, and I'll even have their XH, which is rated 15 to 30, and that, is something, if I have to go up to 5 or 6 ounces, I'll use that. So pretty much, it's just, you're trying to use as light a weight bucktail to stay down. If you go too light, it's not going to work for you. You're going to have to use some amount of lead, and then you're going to match the rod to that amount of weight that you have to use, again, with the objective being that you put lots of lively action on the jig, because that's the magnet. That's what's going to draw the fish.
Yeah, I mean, you've got proof to show that too, which is pretty cool. What kind of leader are you using?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, you got to ask me all that, because you know what? It just compiled knowledge, and I forget to mention it. All right, so 25-pound fluorocarbon, and the fluorocarbon is not used for the same reason that you use fluoro down there. I mean, you've got a lot of clear waters in areas, and fluoro is really important for targeting certain fish. And it's not that we're looking for the fluorocarbon to be, because it's clear. We use it because it's more abrasion resistant. And if you've got, especially on the teaser, a lot of times these flounder will engulf the whole thing, and that's in their mouth, and they've got teeth. So we want a little bit of extra abrasion resistance, and we'll use either 20 or 25 ounces fluorocarbon leader material to tie those leaders. That's a very simple rig, and I've got on my channel, I've got a how-to on how to tie the rig. On the bottom, there's a surgeon's loop, and 1 foot above that is a dropper loop, and the bottom gets the bucktail jig, and above that gets the teaser, and that's that. No cool. Hardware, just loops, and it's attached to the main line through a small barrel swivel, like something high quality, like Tsunami Centro or Spro.
Got it. I'll put a reference to that video as well in the show notes. So, knowing what you know now, do you ever use live bait at all for flounder? Fluke?
You know what? You ask really, really good questions. No. No. And it was an interesting trip last year. Probably one of the best. Now, when we have big flounder, we call them doormats. I don't know if you would call them that down there.
Yeah, we love that. We love that name.
One of the best doormat baits, I think nobody would disagree with this, is we call them snappers, but they're not your snappers. They're juvenile bluefish. They're young of the year bluefish. So these things are like maybe 5 or 6 inches long. The problem is this is not a bait that's available much of the season, but in August, there's quite a few of them. So we had a trip last year where we were on a nice boat, and it's got a live well, and the guy who's got the boat, it's in his backyard, and he's got a live bait pen. So he catches a whole bunch of snappers. So that, we're going to have this prime bait. So here we are out at Montauk Point, which is arguably one of the best doormat places anywhere. And we've got live snappers, and we have live peanut bunker. They're called many different things. They're called menhaden, they're called pogies. Anyway, we've got the best live bait there is. And I'm such a gulp. There were the 4 of us on the boat, and I told them, I said, go ahead, knock yourself out. I'm sticking with the gulp. And I have to admit, even I was surprised. After an hour, they all switched over to the gulp because I was out fishing them. That surprised me. I mean, it's hard to get that opportunity to have that high quality live bait out there, but that was remarkable to me that the gulp still outfished the live snappers. So if I was out in my boat and you came alongside me and said, "Hey, I've got a bunch of live killies here, I'm going to dump. Would you like them?" I was like, "Nah, let them go. I'll stick with what I'm doing."
Got my bucktail and my gulp. That's crazy.
One of the big advantages of gulp is, so what happens when you're jigging and you get a hit and you miss it? What's the first thing that you think of? Did I lose my bait? And one of the greatest advantages of gulp is you don't have to worry about that. You did not lose your bait. The gulp stays on. And what you'll see on the underwater video, first of all, if I get back to the technique of rapid vertical jigging, it's just bounce, 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 and you'll see that on the videos. And what I'm waiting to feel is an interruption in that bouncing, a little bit of weight, just something there. And as soon as I feel that little something, I'm going to set the hook hard. I am not going to wait. I'm going to set immediately. And this is going to hook the fish almost all of the time. In fact, I've got a video on my channel. It's 20 flounder in 18 minutes. And on that video, I attempted to set the hook 21 times. And no, 20, let me see. I attempted to set 22 times. I hooked 21 fish. I landed 20 in 18 minutes. And it's just a nice demonstration of setting the hook right away. Now, the point of all of that is if you miss them, the damn fish is going to come back over and over. And you see this on the underwater video where, like I mentioned, I've got a hook protector on there, and this thing's coming out of their mouth, and the fish is just repeatedly going after 6, 7, 8 times where the rig comes out of their mouth, and they just grab it again. It's almost as though if you miss them, you're going to piss that fish off, and it's going to come back. And it's important to think about that because, you're jigging and you miss a fish, and hey, just keep jigging. You're going to get them. And the other thing is, you get that fish on, you get them a few cranks off the bottom, and you lose them. Don't cry. Get the rig back down. Keep bouncing. A lot of times, you're going to get that fish. And when you watch the underwater video, you see exactly why I can say that with so much confidence.
Yeah, I mean, they are aggressive. I mean, they're predators. It's I'm gonna put a link to all these videos too. I'll probably just embed them so they'll all be there, and you can watch them all in one place. And I'll put some little notes next to them. But it is so revealing. I think just watching your videos, I mean, that can be the game changer in your next trip going after flounder. So I got one more question. What do you consider a doormat? I know down here, we don't get the same size. Especially I'm looking at the one in your book right now. Oh my gosh, it's a beast. So what is a doormat in terms of inches or weight? What do you guys call it?
And you know what? Technically, that one on the cover, you know what? It's like anything else. People have different guidelines for that, but some people will, say it has to be 10 pounds to be considered a doormat. Other people will say 8 pounds, and I'm sure there's some people who will think 7. So it varies on who you ask what a doormat is.
So the one on your cover, you would not call that a doormat?
It's 7 point. That was 7.8 pounds. Yeah. So it's not quite a doormat. Yeah, you could call it a doormat. It's one of those things.
I'm going to call it.
You know what? I'll tell you what. From the shore. From the shore, that's a doormat. So I think it's all relative. You know what? If you're off Montauk Point and you get that one, it's a damn nice fish anywhere. But on the beach, that's really a good one.
So is there any tactics to catching bigger flounder in particular from the beach? Do you have anything different that you do? Because you're obviously not vertical jigging. What do you how did you catch that thing? I've never caught a flounder.
You know what? In fact, the video on how I caught that is on my channel too. So you get to see how I caught it. But it's the same rod action. Again, it's that objective of trying to put a lot of motion on the jig. So you're just casting the jig, and on the retrieve, you're just bouncing. Not on the bottom bouncing. You're retrieving slowly, but you're shaking that rod, trying to put a lot of action on the jig. And shore fishing, especially right from the ocean beach, open beach on the ocean, isn't very popular. You don't see a lot of people doing that, but I've been able to turn some people onto that, and it's worked very well for them. And a couple have said, "Oh, the big difference was as soon as I put the action on there, and got that shaking action that made such a difference." So it's just the same gulp rig. I use that same gulp rig, the bucktail on the bottom, and then the teaser. Whether I'm standing on the beach or I'm out in 100 feet of water, it's the same basic rig. In this case, with that fish, that was a 3/4 ounce bucktail, and had a 4-inch gulp on it. And it actually that fish took a 3-inch gulp shrimp just on a 3/0 Gamakatsu bait holder hook and hit the teaser.
Oh yeah, I see it. I see the teaser in its mouth and the bucktail hanging.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Cool. So I know you make your own bucktails. What do you like, a specific brand, or you always make your own?
Well, all right. So that's a good question. I get picky about things. So I was making my own for quite a while, and got friendly with one of the bucktail manufacturers and said, "Can't you make these things for me?" And he did. And so now they sell them. So now you can buy John Skinner fluke bucktails.
Oh, cool.
So if you Google, in fact, it's never clear to me what shops have it. I always know jndhtackle.com. It's Oakdale, Long Island. They sell the complete line of bucktails, because I've got the bucktails that you'd be using off the beach or shallow, and then also and those are fixed hooks, and we also have some heavier swing hook bucktails that we use out in the boat, out in the deep rips when you have to start going up 3, 4, 5 ounces in that range. But yeah, jndh.com, or just Google J&H Tackle, and they've got all that stuff. So that's an easy answer. Those are the ones I'm using.
Cool. Well, that's good. I'm looking at the time. This is a fun interview, and we blew through these. It's 34 minutes already. So please, everyone, go check out flounderbook.com. That's flounderbook.com. You'll see the picture of the flounder that we're talking about with John on the beach. And I love the fact that you have all the chapters, and you even have some videos with a lot of them. And then I'm going to put some links to these videos too in all the show notes. But definitely go check that out. Buy the book. And if you're into stripers, I know you got a striper book too, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. Striper Pursuit, Fishing the Bucktail, Season on the Edge. Those are primarily striper, but there's some false albacore. I think you guys call them bonito down there, and a little bit of fluke mixed in with those. And what I'd like to mention on both the flounder book and the striper book, what I've done is I've put QR codes sprinkled throughout the book. So if you're reading a particular chapter, let's say about beach fishing, so there's a QR code. You can scan that with your smartphone, and it will take you right to the video that goes along with whatever you're reading about. And people have found that so helpful that, not only read about something, but then, see it. Because, words you can do so much, but, when you can then show somebody through the video, that's very powerful, and that's worked out well. So that book definitely incorporates that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Love technology. So what are you working on now? Any new books or new YouTube videos that we should be looking for next?
Well, no new books, but I'm always working on new videos because I'm fishing. So like the last couple mornings I've been out striper fishing, and I've done well. So within a couple days, I'll get some striper videos out, and then we'll be flounder fishing starting this weekend, so I'll start getting some new flounder uploads as well.
Cool. We'll be looking forward to seeing it. So everyone, once again, check out flounderbook.com, and to get all the different show notes and everything, saltstrong.com/podcast. You'll see everything there. John, thank you so much. I know we're going to try to talk offline and try to find a time to get up there and do some filming with you. So hopefully you guys will all see some cool footage, some real footage of us with him out there doing all this stuff that we talked about today, and then plus some more. So thank you so much again for your time, and I can't wait to see some of the new videos coming up.
All right, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, John.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul, it was